Before we start this video, a large thank you to Ovind, Paco, David, Oz, Chris, Dave, Lifts, Sharon Jiv, and Tibbo for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And a special thank you to Halo Burner and Dark Matter for their continued immense support to the channel this month on Patreon. I hope you gentlemen enjoy the video. Hello everybody, today we are going to finish our saving and loading. So let's go over to the current character save data. I'm just going to make another little section down here, right under the main projectile and secondary projectile. And I'm going to make a public int for current flasks, current life flasks remaining. Do we call it life or health? I'll check that in a second, but current life or health flasks remaining, and then your current focus points flasks remaining. Defaultly, I'm going to set it to 3 and 1 because when you make a new character save file, I'm going to give them 3 life and 1 focus points flask. Okay, cool. So when we have that here now, let's go over to the player manager where we save and load everything. And let's go down to the save and load functionality. So under save game data to current character data, wherever you want, I'm going to put mine here under where I save the stats. I'm going to say current character data dot current health flasks remaining is equal to player network manager dot, I'm thinking I called it life flasks maybe? Health? No. Remaining health flasks dot value. So I'm going to change the name. Whoops, I also said focus points flasks. It should be life flasks. I'm going to change the name to match this variable. So I will right click on this and change life into health. So we got current health flask remaining is equal to the network variable of the remaining health flasks. Let's also do the same thing for the focus points flasks. Now remember, we're saving these as network variables because if you don't recall, we need to know when the flask empties so we can change the item model and it reflects on our character if other people see us drinking the flask. That's why these amounts are saved on the network manager and not on the item themselves. All right, so now under load game data from current character data. By the way, tip 2, when you're making this, you should probably put your loading and saving in the same order. So for example, if you save your weapons and equipment and then flasks, you should probably load them in the same order too. So if you're ever looking to change something, it's very easy to find. But yeah, just do the reverse. So it becomes player network manager.remaining health flask.value is equal to current character data.current health flasks remaining. And then of course, the same is true for the focus points flasks. So its focus points is equal to the focus points flask. Now I'm going to add these to my quick slot items in game here. And I'm going to just quickly drink one. So that should, oh, the number didn't change from 3 to 2, but it is definitely 2, and it actually had my mana flask on health, so I'm going to untick that. So now if I go over here now and save the game, if I load back in, you can see I do have 2 flasks remaining. So the amount did save correctly. We're going to fix how that didn't deduct when we drank at the end of the video. I guess that's something I forgot to do in a previous video. So you could make a serializable flask, just like you did with the serializable weapon and the range projectile, which I'm going to do just to show you. We're not going to use this, but I'll show you why, and then I'll quickly show you what I'm going to do instead. So you could yoink all this here from the serializable weapon, and the reason why you might want to use a serializable flask, and you totally could, is if you want to keep, say, your conventions the same and how you save things, because a flask will have a healing amount and a maximum charge amount. But now the maximum charge amount can be divvied between the 2 flasks, so really it's just the maximum heal amount you want to save. So you could store the maximum heal amount of your flask on this serializable flask, just like we have an Ash of War for a weapon. You can make some kind of comment for that here. Again, I'm just going to comment it out because I'm not really going to do it. You could say flask upgrade level, or you could say flask heal amount, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that this is possible and this is a route if you want to do it. What I do is I just keep the flasks as a general quick slot item, and I save the flasks upgrade level and heal amount as another variable on the player stat manager, just something that keeps track of all the player stuff. But if you want to put it here, I think it does look cooler when it's here. But again, this just literally just comes down to how you feel and how neat it is or where it makes sense to you. So I will finish this because I've started it. So let's just make flask item here. Let's say get flasks. We can change this to flask item. And then I'll quickly do a bunch of quick cuts and we'll do one for quick slot item. And if you want to, you can pause the video right now and just go ahead and do that. So set up a serializable quick slot item, just like we've set up serializable weapon, just like we've set up serializable range projectile, and now just like we're setting up serializable flask. So you want to make the serializable script, then you want to go to the world item database and the world save game manager, and you want to make both public and then your respective variables. So the first one for here would be public flask item, get flask item from serializable data. And then you would go to the world save game manager and you would say public serializable flask item, get serializable flask item from the actual flask item. So remember, this is just used basically for you want to be able to save these items. So we're going to feed the current character data this data, and then when we load, we're going to get back from that data and turn it into an item. That's why we're having one function that turns it into an item from the data, and another function that turns the item into the data. So just reverse. But yeah, I'm going to quickly finish this get flask item, and again, I'm not going to use this, so we're going to say get quickslot item here because the flask is always a quickslot item, but we'll have to do a cast. You don't need to save the current item map because remember that's always a variable on your player network manager because we need to know that. So we can just do a cast as flask item. Now I will do the other one as well because again you can do it as a serializable flask item. You can't save it that way. So we have to go to the world save game manager now, like I just said, and we have to use the get serializable from the item. So now go down here, copy and paste, and I'm going to do the quickslot item one real fast since I'm doing the flask one here, not to waste too much of your guys' time. So I'm just going to do a few quick cuts. You might want to pause here after I'm done this one if you haven't went ahead and done it yourself already. But again, it's going to be exactly as I'm doing right now. We're just going to add in basically a value for the item amount. So get serializable flask from flask item, right click, change, flask, and then we're just going to check for the ID. Cool, it's going to become a serializable flask, and that's going to be a new serializable flask, and we'll change the variable name to serialized flask. And then again, it becomes serializable flask, and there is no item amount because remember we're getting that from our network manager. It's already being saved, and then we're going to return the serialized flask. It's giving me an error. I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. So I accidentally have this as a flask item. It should be a serializable flask. There we go. Cool. All right, save. Now, if you want to use that, you totally can. Now, on to what I'm going to do. Since quickslot items are going to be used in our quickslots. Oh, this also should be serializable flask here. My bad. That variable type. Now save that. It's probably going to throw you an error. So if we go to the quickslot item here, we have for a consumable is tag. It's going to be is true or is false. Let's set a public int item amount defaultly at 1. You're not going to use this item amount unless it is consumable, but we need to know if it is consumable. So let's right click now and create a new C# script for the serializable quickslot item. So I'm going to be very fast with this since I just made the flask item. It's going to be very similar. I'm not going to waste too much of your time. So serializable quickslot item, boom. Delete start and update functionality. System.serializable. Copy and paste, yoink that. Come in here again. Paste. So we're going to change flask to quickslot item. We're going to rename this to sincere. This is not supposed to be serializable consumables. My bad. I'm copying Nephilim's names. This is supposed to be serializable quickslot item. Okay. Now we're going to yoink the functions under the world item database and the world save game manager and change them from whatever to quickslot item. Change all keywords to quickslot item. And then change your item amount. Obviously, you're getting the item amount from the item amount of the serializable quickslot item. So you're going to get the item amount regardless if it's consumable or not, but it's only going to be used if it is consumable, because otherwise it will always be 1 and it will never deduct. And then do the same thing here on the world save game manager. Just make a function for getting this. And then current ammo, if you copied range projectile like that, it becomes item amount. And that's it. All right, now we can actually save and load these. So very quick cuts. Again, slow down and pause the video if you miss any of that. But it's just we're just copying what we've done before, so I'm not going to repeat it ad nauseum because it's mostly the same. So over on the character save data, make an index for your quickslot index, just like we did for our left weapon and right weapon index. And then make 3 variables. It's 3 for me because I have 3 of these, but you probably have like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or maybe even 10. Make as many as you want for the serializable quickslot item. So we're going to say quickslot item 01, quickslot item 02. You can do this as a list too if you want to instead. I'm just going to use these 3 variables because I have 3. That looks good. Cool. And then go back to your save character data, and we're going to do this much like we did the weapons. Exactly the same, actually. So you can look above there. We're getting our index first. Let's do that. Current character data.quickslot index is equal to player inventory manager.quickslot index. And then we're going to say current character data.quickslot item 01 is equal to world save game manager.instance. Reference our newly created function, get serializable quickslot item from the quickslot item, and then we reference the quickslot item in position 0 of our array, which is going to be player inventory.quickslot items in quickslots. Say that 10 times fast. 0. All right, then we do the same thing for 2 and 3. Make sure you're changing the number values so you're not referencing the same one over and over again, which I've done so many times. So 2 and 1, and then we're going to do 3, and then position 2 in the array is item 3. All right, cool. Looks very good. Now let's go down to load these quick slot items. Where am I at? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to put it right below weapons, just again so it matches the position in the save as it does in the load. So I'm looking for this. It's easier to find. Player inventory manager dot quick slot items in quick slots 0 is equal to current character data dot quick slot item 01 get. That should be get flask. Let's rename that to get quick slot item. There we go. So again, this is identical to how we're doing the weapons. We're just referencing this new item type instead of weapon item type. So do the same thing again, 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to change your item numbers. And then I'm going to make a comment here for, I'm going to get the index here first. Player inventory manager dot current quick slot. What did I call that? Quick slot item index is equal to current character data dot quick slot item index. Looks very good. All right, now I will make a comment. Quick slot items, and then I'll make one up here for weapons too, just so it's easy to see at first glance. Scrolling down, looking at the green comments, they stand out like a sore thumb. Save. Now I'm going to go over to the player equipment manager, and we don't have load quick slot equipment. I think because I thought it was pointless back when I made the video, but I'm realizing now that it's not. We use it for saving and loading. So I'm going to do that real fast. That's my bad. You guys might already have it, because I think I remember saying too, you can make it if you want. Whoops. So I'm going to copy one of these here. I think load main projectile, and I'm going to change the name to load quick slots equipment. Going to change range projectile variable to quick slot item, and I'm going to change the main projectile here into the current quick slot item that's equipped. So basically, wherever you see main projectile, if you copy that, switch it to current quick slot item. Going to change the current quick slot item in our inventory to null if this is null. Otherwise, it becomes the item we pass, and again, the main projectile ID becomes current quick slot item ID. All right, cool. Now let's call that. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to just basically make sure we call this so it sets up our inventory and also refreshes our HUD to show the current quick slot item we have equipped. So player equipment manager dot load quick slot equipment, pass our player inventory and pass the index. So quick slot items, and then we pass the index in that array that we just loaded from our current character data. All right, looks good. I'll make a comment here just as it's clear. This just basically refreshes the HUD and also puts the item in your current equipped quick slot item slot. All right, save. Go into the game here now and add in health and mana flask. And let's do save. Cool. And now we're going to go to the World Save Game Manager, hit the save button. Okay, let's go back to the game and press start. Go down to load game, go to my character and see if it worked. So, okay, cool. We have the flask loading in, but if I switch my flask, actually, I'm noticing that mistake. I accidentally tagged, I forgot to put the numbers here. So quick slot item 2 and 3, this is under my load. I had them all referencing position 1 in the array, and now it is fixed. So there you go. You can see it is loading the flasks as intended, or the quick slot items, I should say. So now let's go back to save game data, the function here under player manager. And let's go right below everything, and now we're going to reference a list of everything in our player's inventory. So this is going to be everything we have in our inventory at the time. So what are we doing here? Well, we got to check for specific item types, because depending on what they are, we're going to save them, or rather serialize them in different ways. So we're going to say if player inventory manager items in inventory I is equal null, we want to simply continue and skip it. It should never be null. But just in case, skip it, don't save it. So next time you load the game, there's no null entry in your inventory. Now we're just going to do a bunch of casts to determine what it is. We're going to say weapon item, weapon inventory is equal to the item that we're referencing in this for loop as a weapon item. And if it's not null, then we'll get that variable to not be null. Do the same thing for each of your equipment items, your head, body, leg, and etc., etc. And then we're going to do that by just referencing here as an equipment item. So player inventory I as equipment item. Whoops, sometimes the autocomplete works really well, and sometimes it just does not do what you want it to do. Most of the time, though, it's pretty good. So next, let's do I keep saying consumable because I'm looking at Nephilim. It's my bad. Quick slot item in inventory, and do the same thing. Just do a cast. And we have range projectile item 2. I believe that's the last one for now. I think that's all we have because we don't store spells in our inventory. So range projectile item projectile in inventory is equal to player inventory manager dot items in inventory I as range projectile item. Very cool. Okay, what next? So we're just going to do a check with each of these. We're going to see here if the weapon in inventory does not equal null, And then we're going to save this using our serializable weapon. So how we do that, we're going to say current character save data. And then we're going to reference a list that does not exist yet. So let's go make that. So let's go and jump back to our current character save data. Now we have all this. Think of this equipment as what we have on currently, like everything we have here, our weapons, our quick slot items, our projectiles. This is what we currently have equipped. So I'm going to make another little header here. I don't know why I'm using a comment. I could use an actual header, to be honest. Header inventory. And we're going to say public list. We'll start off with serializable weapons. And these are going to be our weapons in inventory. And you can take a guess. Then we're going to do range projectiles inventory. And then we're going to do quick slot items in inventory. And then we're going to do various armor equipments in our inventory. So basically, we're going to go down through and add each of these items that we find in our inventory to each of these lists, depending on which one they fit into. And then we load, we're just going to do the reverse. We're just going to take the items from these lists and add them back to our inventory. And it's just that simple. That's all it is. So we have serializable weapon, serializable range projectile, and serializable quick slot item. And again, I'm not using the flask because the flask will just be under quick slot item. I'm not doing anything special with the flasks. So, okay, now we also need ones for our equipment. So public list int, we're going to say equipment in inventory. Now we need to make sure that all of these lists are set to new. So when you create a new character save data, they're cleared. You should also clear these two before you save. If you're using the same save data, you're not saving additional items in your lists over what you already have along with what you already have. I'll go over that though in a moment. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So weapons inventory is equal to new serializable weapon. Projectiles inventory is equal to new list serializable range projectile. Yada, yada, yada. Quick slot items inventory, same thing. Just we're basically initializing these lists as new lists. And the same thing with our equipment. All right, cool. Now we can actually go back to the player manager, and under the save function, we can start populating these lists of equipment with what we find. So weapons inventory .add, and then we're going to pass. You don't pass the player inventory manager .weapon or whatever. Remember, we can only save the serialized version of this weapon. So we do need to reference this specific weapon though. So we already have that here because we're checking if it's not null. So we can use the weapon in inventory, and we can reference this and get serializable data by saying world save game manager .instance. And remember, we made a function get serializable data from weapon. So we're turning this weapon into some serializable data that we can save, just like that. And then when we load it, we're going to do the reverse and change the serializable data back into a weapon. I'm repeating myself over and over again just so it's clear, because I know if you're new to saving and loading and serializing data, a lot of this can be kind of confusing or a bit much at first. So if anything is unclear, please let me know in the comments. Next, let's do the same thing for our inventory, our equipment. So since we're just using a standard ID for that, we just need to add the item ID. That's it. And then we can do the same thing for our quick slots in inventory. Now, this is a special item. There's more than just the item ID because it saves the item amount if it's consumable. So go ahead and use get serializable quick slot item from the quick slot item, and we pass the quick slot item in inventory, and we add this to the quick slot items in inventory on our current character save data. And lastly, do the same thing for projectile in inventory. And again, this is going to use a special serialization method. We're going to add it to projectiles in inventory, and we're going to say get projectile serializable data from projectile item. We're doing this because it needs to remember the projectile count. All right, that looks great. Let's go ahead now, and we're going to go to the load data, and we're going to load all these types. So I'm going to go to the same place right at the bottom here, just before we equip our armor, obviously, because you want to equip and load all of our stuff after our inventory has been loaded in its entirety and our equipment. So we're going to do a for loop for each weapon in our inventory from the current character save data. We're just going to say weapon item, weapon, is equal to current character save data, weapons in inventory, i.getWeapon. And then you know what else we do? All we do is reference our player inventory now and say player inventory manager, add item to inventory, and we pass the weapon. That's it. Just that simple. Now we do the same thing for our, what else did I have here? Projectiles and quick slot items and equipment, right? That sounds right. Equipment. All right, so equipment item. Let me check my notes here again. Yes, equipment, looking at F. Equipment is equal to current character data dot equipment. Then we're going to say, we're going to reference the world item database. So let's be world item database dot instance dot get equipment by ID when we pass the equipment ID. So current character save data dot equipment inventory I dot item ID. or sorry, just current equipment that inventory I, because we're only passing an ID. You don't need to get the item ID. We're just passing an int, so you just get that. And lastly, we have the quick slot items and then the range projectile items here. So we're going to make this variable to quick slot. I'm just going to copy and paste the weapons. Get the quick slot item. We're going to say current character save data dot quick slot items in inventory dot get quick slot item. And then we're going to do player inventory manager, add an inventory quick slot item. Do the same thing here now, lastly for range projectiles. And I believe that is all the item types we have currently in the tutorial series. So you can imagine now as you get special item types, you're just going to do this with different items. You can save them as a basic item ID with a list of ints if they're not special, but if they have more than 1 or 2 data types on them that you need to save additionally, you want to make serializable data for them. All right, cool, looks good. Let's test this right now. Actually, I'm just realizing that there is no get equipment by ID. This is not Nephilim, my bad again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically save these individually as head equipment, body equipment, leg equipment, and hand equipment. So we have equipment in inventory. Let's rename this to head equipment in inventory. And then make another list for body, legs, and hands, just like that. So real quick, body equipment in inventory. Then we're going to do hand equipment in inventory and leg equipment in inventory. And we're going to come down here where we make the character save data. And let's just quickly set these lists to new again as well. So we got hand, we got body, and then we got leg, and then we got hand. All right, looks good. Jump back over to the player save game manager. We're going to reference get head equipment by ID first, and then I'm just going to copy these for loops, again, under save and load. And then we're going to do, okay, so we got head, body, leg, and hand. Now make sure you take the time to change these keywords. I'm going to do body first, and then I think it's 3 in every one of these for loops. Yeah, so it's the main one here on current character data, head becomes leg here. Then it's the world item database get leg equipment by ID. And we're passing the current character data again, leg equipment. So again, same thing in here for hand. This is the last one. Just make sure you're referencing it. There's 3 here under this set of functions. Now, if I go up here, we're going to make this into head equipment item from equipment item. And this is where we're saving it to, by the way. Then we're going to say head equipment in inventory is equal to, and we're doing a cast for items in inventory as a head equipment item. Now do the same thing, copy this line, paste it 3 more times, do body, leg, and hand. I'm going to quickly cut here, it's not wasting your time. And I'm just going to do the same thing here, going to paste this, and then we got body and body, again 3 times. Referencing the equipment if it's not null. We're getting the current character data body equipment, and I'll cut, not to waste more of your time. There it is. So now if I go into the game here and drink, you can see we're not actually losing, it's not going from 2 to 1 when I drink my flask. Very simple fix. Go to the player UID HUD manager. Instead of passing an int for set quick slot item, quick slot icon, pass the actual quick slot item itself, like the actual item. And then we're going to erase this top line here, this very top line where it says quick slot item is equal to. We're not getting it from the world item database. Now look where we find this function. We reference this in one place only. It's on the player network manager. Let's jump over to there. So you can see here, instead of passing the new ID, just pass the now existing quick slot item that we have in our inventory that we've already set there just above. And then all we're going to do is literally call this function again. So we're going to save this and copy this right now. And then right where you drink the flask, under successfully drink item, under owner, just set the quick slot item again, and then boom, there you go. 2 to 1, working as intended. Now let's go to my inventory and let's add a bunch of items and make sure this is saving properly. So I currently have a medium shield, a flask, and I'm going to add a bunch of armor here now too. So we got standard arrow. I'm just going to add the full knight set just because. And then we'll load into the game and equip that if it's working as intended. So knight's armor, gauntlets, leggings, helm, cool. Let's save the game. Where's the save manager? There it is. Be right back. Okay, play. And start. Load. Jump in. Cool. All right, let's go check. So go to my equipment. Going to go up to my head equipment. Boom. Yep, there it is. Body equipment's there. My hand equipment's there. And my boot equipment is there. Sweet. So I guess that worked. Let's check the inventory just to make sure, though. And let's scroll down. Looks like I have duplicated some of my items. And this is because I forgot to clear the list like I just said a few minutes ago. So save character data. Before you save, you see here we have all these lists, right? In this giant for loop. Before we go through this for loop, do current character data and go to each of these lists. So weapons and inventory. And then we're going to say equals new list. So just basically make it again as a new list. of whatever it is. So weapons inventory becomes new list, serializable weapon. Projectiles becomes new list, serializable projectile, etc., etc. I've done a cut here. Don't waste your time. Clear lists. I guess you could probably use clear too before save. So I've just initialized them at new lists. Now I got all these items in inventory. Again, you can see I've just added them all. I'm going to save real fast. And then when I load back into the game, I am going to jump back to my player. And then boom, let's scroll down. Please be there. And they are all there. So working as intended. All right, there you go, guys. You can literally save everything in the project right now. And with the knowledge you have been armed with, you can learn to save anything you want, because anything you save from this point onward is not going to be any different than something you've already done. So we are going to continue onward with the little roadmap I posted in the Discord. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And also, I hope you all have a very lovely new year. I wish you all success on all creative endeavors this year. And I wish you nothing but the best. I also want to thank you for being with me for such a very long time. If you're watching this video, chances are you've been here for quite some time. Some of you have been here for years. So I just want to extend my gratitude, my sincerest gratitude to all of you, because I only get to keep doing this because of all of you who support me in the past and in the present. So for that, you have my thanks. I'll see you guys next week when we continue the series. Have a great weekend.